right, guys. So we have Layne Norton, the OG of macro dieting, on today. Layne has a PhD in nutritional sciences. You recently just launched your supplement brand, Outwork. You also have your online coaching program, the Carbon Diet Coach, which you've had that now for a couple of years, right? 3 years or so? Has that been?
That one's only going to be 2 years in May,
Okay, two
so about
years
a
in
year and a
May.
half.
Okay, so yeah, lots of good stuff you're producing and doing. I mean, I had the pleasure of working with you. Oh my gosh, probably close to 10 years ago. My wife Rachel worked with you. You saved her life when it came to dieting. She was in a really bad spot. Created a lot of bad habits with other coaches, gurus, whatever you want to call them, with competing. And I know you made a big difference in Rachel's life, and she continues to, use the principles you taught her for dieting and counting macros, and it's a big part of her life. And I was so interested in it that I even tried it and worked with you for a little bit to learn everything. So I'm very excited about having you on today. I prepared some questions because I think there's just a lot of information in the industry that unfortunately people still just are misled or misguided, and there's just a lack of data and good research, I think, and knowledge, or people just doing the research and figuring out the proper ways and the most efficient ways. So one thing that I want to talk about was calories in, calories out. That seems to be a big thing that comes up. People talking about calories in, calories out. And do you feel there's other variables that come into play aside from just what you're intaking and what you're burning, like things like stress, things like your digestive system, your sleep, even like your blood glucose levels? If someone has poor insulin sensitivity and on the verge of becoming diabetic, at what point do these other variables come into play and it's not just calories in, calories out?
Yeah, great question. I think a lot of this boils down to a misunderstanding of what calories in, calories out actually is. So if we, because that equation sounds so simple. People say, "Well,
Yes.
I'm track what I'm eating, and I'm watching my Apple Watch, and it's telling me how much I'm burning." Or this, online calculator told me that I should eat this, and I'm eating this. I'm not getting the results I want. So therefore, calories in, calories out is bullshit. Can I curse?
Yes, of course.
Okay, sweet, sweet. Fuck yeah. Um, so I think we first have to understand is even while the equation is simple, the components that make up the equation are not. And so the calories inside of thing is not as simple as you would think, because calories in, we're talking about the amount of metabolizable energy that you end up absorbing. Now, that can be variable from person to person. It doesn't appear to be real variable, but based on your individual gut microflora, some people are better at extracting calories out of things like fiber than other people. Depending on if you eat more fibrous foods, you may have less metabolizable energy. If you're like, for example, eating a vegan diet, some of the like proteins that are part of vegan diets, even the carbohydrates, are bound up in the fibrous material of plants, making it less bioavailable. So the other thing is too is food labels have a 10 to 20% error just in the food labels themselves. So people may think, oh, I'm tracking exactly, down to the calorie, and it's impossible to track down to the calorie. Now, people will use that to say, well, see, why even bother if you can't track it exactly? And that's kind of a unicorn fallacy. Nothing can be exactly tracked for the most part. And that's why consistency is important. And then on the other side, it's even more complicated because calories out is basically what we call your total daily energy expenditure, which is the summation of all the energy that you burn. And when we talk about energy, people have to understand calories literally refer to energy, to heat energy. In fact, the way the calorie was discovered was they put rats in a box. This is back in the 1800s. They put them in a sealed container with ice, and they looked at, based on how many calories we feed them, how much heat should this generate and how much that ice should melt. And it was almost exactly what they predicted. So
Wow.
those calories, that amount of heat that's generated, is energy, right? So your proteins, your carbohydrates, your fats, When we refer to energy, we are referring to the chemical energy that is stored in the chemical bonds of those nutrients, right? And when through the process of digestion, absorption, metabolism, you are breaking quite a few of those bonds, and that is allowing that energy to be captured. So I realize that's very pedantic in a way, but it's important to understand because people will say things like, well, calories in, calories out assumes that all calories are the same. No, it doesn't. No,
Yeah.
it doesn't. But actually it does, because all calories are the same, because calorie is just a unit of measurement. So saying all calories aren't the same is saying, well, all miles per hour aren't the same, or all seconds on a clock aren't the same. No, they are, but different sources of calories from foods can have different impacts on your calories in and your calories out. So if we look at what calories out is in terms of the summation of the total energy you expend during a day, it's your basal metabolic rate, which is for most people the majority of their energy, about 50 to 70%. And that's how much energy it just takes to keep the lights on, run your organs, your heart, your brain, those sorts of things. Then you've got, pretty intuitively, your physical activity, which consists of exercise, which can be nothing or up to quite a bit for folks like you and I. And then you've got your non-exercise physical activity, and that includes something called NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Now, people have a misunderstanding about NEAT. NEAT is all non-purposeful movements. So like you just kind of moved your leg and fidgeted your hand just then.
Yeah.
You weren't like consciously like, okay, fidget my hand, move my leg. But that's something that just happens because it's a way for the body to dissipate excess energy. So if you've ever met somebody who like taps their foot a lot or is real fidgety, they're not, you probably notice very rarely do you see an obese person that's real fidgety. So they've actually shown that people who are what's called obese resistant tend to not become obese even when overeating. When they overeat, they actually just end up dissipating more energy by just fidgeting and moving more without even realizing it. In fact, there was a study back in 1995's classic study. They overfed people by 1,000 calories a day, and most people gained a good amount of weight over a 6-week period of time. But there was one person who did not. He gained like a pound over 6 weeks of overfeeding 1,000 calories. I mean, he should have gained like 12 pounds, right? That's about what you expect.
Yeah.
And they just found that basically his NEAT just went up to compensate for that. He just spontaneously became more active without even realizing it. So there's those components. There's also your thermic effect of food, which has an impact, which is 5 to 10%. That's the amount of energy it requires to digest, assimilate, and metabolize the nutrients you have. So think about like a car, right? You have energy sitting in your gas tank, but you need a battery and a starter. You have to put energy in to get energy out, right?
Yeah.
But you always get out more energy than you put in, otherwise the system would be extremely, unuseful.
Yes.
So when we look at that, when we consider the calories in and the calories outside of thing, all the variables you just brought up can have an impact on those. So for example, stress. They've shown that people who are stressed tend to consume more calories without realizing it. They snack more. They also tend to get more sedentary. Sleep. There was actually a study that showed people who are sleep deprived on average will spontaneously consume about 500 more calories per day.
Wow.
And then additionally, they actually become less active without even realizing it. I mean, think about how effective your exercise session is after a night of sleep deprivation. Mm-hmm. And then also think about how horrible you feel. You usually just lay on the couch or sit down, right?
Yeah.
So I think what's happening is people are misidentifying, or they just don't quite understand how this affects different things. Now let's take different macronutrients, for example. Protein, people say, well, you can't tell me that 100 calories from protein is the same as, and broccoli is the same as 100 calories from Pop-Tarts. Well, they are the same, but their intake affects your expenditure differentially. So for something like refined sugar, I mean, your TEF is like 5 to 10%. It's very, very low. For protein and fiber, it's closer to 20-30%. So meaning if you ate 100 calories from one, you might net like 70 or 80. But if you ate 100 calories from a highly refined sugar, you might net like 90 to 95.
Right.
So you've got, people don't quite understand that. That's why they make these kind of logical fallacies about calories in, calories out.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that people hate hearing this because they're like, oh, that's not me. I don't do that. Yes, it is. Yes, you do. For the most part. So there was a study, this very classic study back in the day. They took women who self-reported that they could not lose weight on 1,200 calories a day. They put them in a metabolic ward, which is where they can, remember that chamber I was talking about with the rat where they fed it food? It's like an advanced version of that. They can measure directly people's energy expenditure. They can also exactly track how many calories they're consuming. And the researchers told them, we want you to report your energy intake. And if you don't report it accurately, we are going to know. Guess how much they underreported their energy intake by?
Gosh. This kind of leads me to my next question, actually. I bet it was way off.
50%.
Wow.
They underreported by 50%, and they overreported their physical activity by almost 50%. Not only that, some of them actually tried to argue with the researchers about how many calories they did consume. So it just goes to show you. Now, people will hear that. It feels very attacking. Well, I'm not a liar. I don't lie. And you know what? I actually don't think that it's necessarily people lying. I think unless you've had the experience of weighing out every single piece of food you put in your mouth, you just don't have any clue about what a serving size actually looks like. Because if you want to be depressed, go weigh out a serving of peanut butter. Go weigh out a serving of ice cream.
People think they're having a tablespoon of peanut butter, and really they're having 3 tablespoons.
Exactly. Even like volume measurements, like this, if you ever compared like a third cup of oats, but then you weigh it, like it's usually like 50 grams, not 40. It's way off. Yeah,
I agree. And that's one thing that I've noticed, and I actually messaged you about this, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. I've coached like some competitors and some women, and I've come across a couple athletes in the past that swear up and down they're following the diet to a T. And I'm talking like by the end, they're eating like 1,100, 1,200 calories, doing 2+ hours of cardio, and no progress. Yeah. At what point are we like, okay, is this just like a severe case of metabolic damage? Or like, is there other factors that come into play, like certain body types maybe release too much cortisol, too much stress, and it doesn't matter how much expenditure they're doing or how low calories they're eating, they're just simply in a hormonally really bad spot where their body's just holding on for dear life in survival mode. Like, is that a thing? Can that happen?
So a couple parts to your question here. Keep in mind that if something is going to affect someone's ability to lose fat, we're going to be able to measure that in their energy expenditure, right?
Right.
We can assess that. Studies on cortisol have been pretty underwhelming in terms of it doesn't seem to reduce energy expenditure necessarily. Now, what cortisol may do is because you can get in this cycle where you're liberating free fatty acids, because cortisol is actually like an energy liberator. It actually will increase the liberation of free fatty acids. The problem is if they're not doing anything with them, they can be restored. Also tends to increase your appetite. But people can actually change their kind of distribution of body fat if they have really high levels of cortisol. But again, that's one of the things that I always tell people. I'll have people comment on my stuff, the same things you've said in terms of, well, what about hormones? And I'll always say, well, which ones? And why don't you just go get them measured?
Yeah.
Like, we can measure this, like if we can measure it, it's not real expensive. And I will tell you, most people don't want to go get them measured. And the reason being is because if they got them measured and they were normal, they wouldn't have a scapegoat. Yeah. Now, I will say that I agree with you. I have seen people who I'm like, man, I know this person. I feel like they are telling me the truth. What I will say is when it comes to competitors, we're dealing with probably a little bit of a different ballgame. in terms of how hard you can push the body. If you go to an extreme enough level, I mean, the body may have a very extreme response, and there's outliers as well. But I would say if you get much below 1,200 calories and people aren't losing weight, I would say they're eating more than they think they are, or they're like even right down to like they're chewing 2 packs of gum a day and not tracking that, and it's like, well, there's actually calories in that. And well, they're not tracking their vegetables, and they're having extra servings of vegetables, which again are low calorie, but still not no calorie. So some of this stuff can add up. The other thing too is like when people get like really high on exercise and low on calories, they tend to just do absolutely nothing the rest of the day.
Yeah,
right?
their energy output is like they're sitting on the couch.
Yeah, Dorian, I can remember, and I'm sure you can appreciate this. Like when people are like, when are you going to do bodybuilding again? I'm like, when I have time to throw away is when I'll do bodybuilding again. Because when you run businesses, you need to be able to use your brain, and it's not real conducive to be that low body fat.
Yeah.
But I was, in 2010, when I did my last shows, I can remember I was on the couch, I'd finished my workout, and the remote control was about the other end of the couch. I'd already sat down.
It was a journey.
And the show
it was a journey to get it. It was a journey to get it.
Yeah. Oh no. So the show was like Real Housewives of wherever, and I freaking hate those kinds of shows.
Yeah.
But I just sat there and watched it because I was not going to get up and get that remote.
Didn't have the energy to get it. Yeah.
No, people don't.
Crazy.
If you've never been that lean, it's hard to really, like, the only way you can describe it to somebody is it is a monumental amount of effort just to stand up. Like you've got.
No, it is. And that's sort of like where I'm at now. And I try explaining to people because like I haven't bodybuilded in 6 years. And I just did a show like, I don't know, 7 weeks ago. And I got another one coming up 2.5 weeks. And like I get up in the morning and I tell Rachel, I'm like, I have a limited amount of energy for the day. So I get up at 5:30, I do my cardio, I do some work, I get my workout in. By the time I get home at 2:30, 3 o'clock, I'm done. I have nothing. The other day I was like, okay, you know what? I got to go tan. So I showered and I couldn't. I was like, I physically can't. I feel sick. I can't even I was just like, I'm done for the night. I just sit there on my red chair and just wait to go to bed. I'm like, I've reached my capacity with thinking, with working, with training after my cardio and training. It's like, so, you know, I totally understand that. It's
a real thing. Think about like the things you might normally do, like pick up around the house or, you know, do this or do that. You go for a walk with your dog or your wife. And now it's like, you're not doing any of that. So I think again, there's explanations for this stuff, and some of the things you mentioned do impact fat loss, absolutely. Yes. But we can assess that via people's energy expenditure, and maybe it affects their energy expenditure, maybe it affects their energy intake.
Yeah.
And then, like you brought up an interesting point about type 2 diabetics, and I hear this a lot. People say, well, that's great for normal people, but you know, this wouldn't work for a type 2 diabetic. So. People are really going to hate me after I tell them this. So the research looking at type 2 diabetics versus lean people shows once you correct for lean body mass, there's no difference in metabolic rate. And some studies actually show that type 2 diabetics have a faster metabolic rate than lean people, even when correcting for lean body mass. And when we look at, so there was actually a meta-analysis done, which is basically a compilation of studies. And they looked at people with type 2 diabetes or people without type 2 diabetes, and how much weight did they lose when on a similar calorie deficit. And they showed it was basically the exact same amount. So type 2 diabetes doesn't seem to impair people from losing weight, and it doesn't even seem to make it more difficult. What I would say makes it more difficult is people who develop type 2 diabetes are people who are more likely to have bad eating habits or poor eating habits, and be more likely to underestimate how much they eat. And they do show this. People with type 2 diabetes actually are one of the demographics that underestimate the most. So lean people underestimate by about 20%. Obese people underestimate by about 30 to 70%, depending on the population. But even dietitians underestimate by 10%. So,
do you think there's any benefit to like an average person who's an athlete? Say someone, let's say someone's preparing for a bodybuilding show, if they are trying to reach peak condition, do you think blood glucose levels meal to meal is a good tool use or monitor. Like if someone goes to, eat their meal 3 and their blood glucose levels are still elevated, is it not efficient to eat that meal, or is it a good gauge to be like, you know what, I'm eating too much meal to meal, I need to back off my calories? Are they going to be less likely to burn body fat if they're eating meals and their blood glucose is still elevated and hasn't dropped back down to a healthy range? We see a lot of products out now, blood glucose disposal agents and whatnot.
So I'll take this in 2 parts.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll take this in 2 parts. So the first is that, let's say that blood glucose was inhibiting people from losing weight and they were having too much meal to meal. Mm-hmm. They would already know that because they wouldn't be losing weight anymore, right? Like their weight loss would have slowed down. The second part of that is, okay, if your blood glucose is elevated, maybe it inhibits fat burning. Well, yes, but fat loss is not the same thing as fat burning or fat oxidation. So fat oxidation is only one side of that equation. So I'll give a comparative example. So we know to build muscle, you need to be in a net positive protein balance, right? Meaning your rate of synthesis needs to exceed your rate of degradation. A similar equation exists in terms of fat balance. And to lose fat, your rate of fat burning needs to exceed your rate of fat storage. Now, if you have elevations in blood glucose or elevations in insulin, it can inhibit fat oxidation. But when we look at studies that compare like low carb diet versus high carb diets, but they equate calories and protein, we don't see any difference in fat loss. Now, how can that be possible, right? Because we know insulin inhibits lipolysis and fat oxidation. Well, the reason for that is that carbohydrate is not really stored as fat directly. So there was several studies where they look at overfeeding people and they look at, okay, you can actually tag glucose and you can tag fatty acids with different what's called stable isotopes, and then you can basically watch where they go in tissue. This is how we looked at muscle protein synthesis during my PhD. So similar methodology, but just looking at a different macronutrient. And they looked at how much carbs, how much of the tag from the carbons in glucose wound up in fat tissue, and then they looked at how much from dietary fat wound up in fat tissue. Less than 2% of what was stored in adipose was from carbohydrate. Over 98% came from dietary fat. And it makes sense because when you feed carbohydrate, your body is going to preferentially oxidize that. So it's going to have to burn the carbohydrate, which spares the dietary fat you eat for fat storage, right? So again, people say, okay, well, I get that, but like, how does that actually relate to fat loss? So if you're eating a low carb diet that's high in fat, because by definition, if you're equating protein between these diets, and that's important because protein is thermogenic. If you're equating protein between 2 diets and you've got one diet that is low carb and higher fat, well, in that diet, you're going to have a much higher rate of fat oxidation, but you're also going to be storing more fat. The net amount of fat you lose or gain is going to depend on whether or not you're in an energy deficit or not. Same token, if you're eating a high carb, low fat diet, you're going to be burning a lot less fat, but you're also not going to be storing much fat because your fat intake is low. And so the net deposition of fat and adipose is going to boil down to, are you in an energy deficit or not? So this stuff, it does matter, but you can still always tie it back into calories in, calories out.
Right. Yeah, no, it's really interesting. Yeah, it's something that I've been sort of tracking lately, and I have noticed it's helped with my digestion if I am monitoring my blood glucose meal to meal. And it's also been interesting too, because if I do like high days, or like let's say I had a cheat meal or something, I do notice like the next day I need to be careful, and it's almost like the body is compounding because it's still elevated or digesting the food from the day prior because of what you did have a high carb day. And I noticed my blood glucose meal to meal is not dropping as quickly between the meals.
Now, when you have a high day, are you increasing carbs and fats, or just carbohydrate?
Just carbohydrates, and honestly, I'd probably eat a little less fat.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and I would notice. But yeah, it's all different though. But then sometimes, depending where the body's at, sometimes I'd have a high carb day, and then you'd lose weight. Or this is the strangest thing, which I can't pinpoint. So this was for me. This was yesterday, training day. I decided, you know what, I'm gonna double my cardio today. I gauge my steps just to make sure I'm moving, which I love that tool for athletes, just because if we start a diet and they're averaging 15,000, I know, hey, are you getting tired and are you just sitting on the couch? So I think it's a good tool. So I was like, you know what? I want to try and get a total of like over 20,000 steps today. I usually average about 14,000. So I did an extra session of cardio. I did 2 45-minute sessions of cardio. One of them was just a walk on the treadmill post-workout. And I even tightened up my carbs a little bit. I just removed my apple post-workout. And I got a good night's sleep, and I was like, oh, I'm going to wake up. I'll probably be lighter. You know, I did more expenditure. I wake up, I'm 2 pounds heavier. I'm like, was my body stressed? Did I stress myself out too much? Or is this just like maybe an inflammation thing, and I'll see the results the next day? Or like we can't go day to day. We can't look at the progress every 24 hours because there's other variables, whether it's inflammation, water retention from stress, or you know what I mean? So
this is great because a lot of people get really hung up on this and confused by this.
Yeah.
I always equate this to the stock market. Okay, so you know the stock market goes all over the place day to day, right? Mm-hmm. So it'd be like the stock market dropping 500 points one day and trying to relate it back to, well, Elon Musk tweeted that yesterday, so maybe that's what did it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. But there's also about 10,000 or 100,000 other things that are happening that might also account for it. And it's always, there absolutely is an explanation, but we have to remember this is what we're seeing on a day-to-day basis is the flux and summation of tens of thousands of metabolic reactions.
Yes.
So when we look at weight, it's really important to really if it isn't more than a week's worth of data, I don't usually mess with it. So I look at averages, right?
Yes.
Like I have people, my clients, and in Carbon, what we recommend people to do is, weigh yourself every single day under the same conditions. First thing in the morning, you go to the bathroom, and then take the average of that. Yeah. Because from day to day, it's like the stock market. It's going to go all over the place. But if you looked at the week-to-week averages, usually those trend in the right direction. Now, not always, because there can be some other weeks too. And that being said, it's like the stock market insofar as sometimes there is a reason, and the reason is also very obvious, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes your weight will be up, and you also had 10,000 milligrams of sodium the day before, and it's very obvious as to why your weight's up, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not so obvious. Sometimes, you do everything that you're not supposed to do, and then your weight drops the next day, and it's like, what the hell? I'm like you. I tend to drop after higher carb days. Now, I tend to think that that's actually because I'm getting more fiber, and maybe I start taking bigger shits.
Yeah, you're clearing out. Yeah, it is such a mind fuck though, because there's times where I can remember where and I felt a little bit overtrained or stressed, and I'll give you an example. There were some days on my low days where I was doing very, very low carbs because I wasn't training, and then I was like, you know what? There's been times where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to back off cardio. I'm just going to rest today. Maybe had a little bit of carbs on the off day, and I wake up the next morning at all-time low. I'm like, What is that? I'm like, my calories are higher than my last off day when I did, you know what I mean? So it's there's just some things sometimes you can't really pinpoint or know. But like you said, it's more of a over the course of the week. Maybe that's just a piece of the puzzle where it's you know what I mean? It's a full week of work, not just the day-to-day. Where we get so stuck on waking up every morning, getting on the scale, looking at ourselves, and making an assessment.
Yeah, I really try to get people when it comes to the scale, I'm like, just it's just data.
Yeah.
Okay. Like we're not gonna. I'm never going to overreact to a single day weigh-ins, regardless of how bad it is. I mean, I've woken up. You know, I'm not as big as you, and I've woke up and been 6 pounds heavier. You
Yeah.
know, day to day. And what happens? Well, if I'm being compliant, I'm hitting my macros, it invariably it comes back down as normal again. You know,
Yes.
it just happens. So
Yep.
again, I think really looking at like, you know, if you talk to a good financial advisor, you know, a reputable financial advisor, and you were wanting to, you know, invest in mutual funds and whatnot, you know, if you called him up after it dropped, you know, 10% on a day, you know, and there was a very obvious reason why or not, but it, you know, that you felt strongly, he felt strongly this is a good investment, it's done well over time, there's no reason that it shouldn't keep doing well over time, you know, he's probably going to be like, hey, just calm down, it's going to be fine, you know, there was a blip in the market, let's just keep, you know, trusting the process and moving forward, and eventually this will come back up. And I mean, that's pretty much the same advice, you know, a good coach is going to give a client. You know, a lot
Yeah.
of, and I'm sure you know this, like a lot of good coaching is just getting the client out of their own way. You know,
Hmm.
people are like, oh, you charge people for this, and it's, you know, you can get all the information for free online. Yeah, good luck digging through all the BS, and also good luck not letting your emotions get the better of you, because that's really what good coaches do is they manage client expectations and emotions. That really is it.
Yep.
We stop, and by the way, it's also why I have a coach for lifting, and I would have a coach for if I did bodybuilding show again, I
Well,
would have a
we
coach.
overthink everything, right? We start
Oh yeah,
analyzing
yeah.
every little, you know.
I'm a dumb fuck like everybody else. You know, I coached myself for my last series of shows, and while I got really
Yeah.
lean and did really well,
Yeah.
the emotional strain that took, just agonizing over every decision, it
Yeah.
would have just been so much better to have somebody take it off my plate.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you a question. I mean, I learned reverse dieting from you, and it's something I have implemented with all my clients from the beginning of time. And you know, I've noticed, like, especially if someone does a competition, obviously, you know, months of dieting, being in a calorie deficit, cardio, post show, whether they're natural or enhanced, I've noticed their body's ability to partition food, increase calories, stay lean, put on lean muscle mass is stronger than any drug or any supplement anyone could ever take. I feel like the body is put into this environment from the extreme measures to get there to be able to put on muscle very efficiently. Have you experienced this, like with getting people to that point where they're like very low body fat in that environment and then reversing them that they're able to grow a lot more efficiently?
I would say that adipose tissue is primed for anabolism. I'm not sure about muscle. Um, I think you can definitely add muscle, and I will say that some people tend to get leaner initially as you start adding calories. It's the wildest thing.
Yes.
I think part of that might be explained by the fact that you got people who are just so depleted with glycogen that, you know, initially that first, you know, several calorie increases is just one, they start to feel better, and so they're moving more again, and then two, you know, getting some more training intensity, and then two, they're just kind of refilling those depleted glycogen stores, and so that is actually, you know, having an appearance of not just more leanness but also more lean body mass. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
appearing fuller, appearing tighter, and then training
Yeah.
intensity in the gym because they're feeling good. It's probably going to be going up. Performance is going up. So all these other things, right? Which even mentally they're feeling better. They're, you know.
Yeah.
So it was crazy. Last weekend I had Quinton Area compete at the Romania Pro Show, and we dieted very very hard going into that show. He really wanted to make it a priority to push conditioning, and it was to the point where like I knew he needed some high days or some feed meals because he's a big guy, and he didn't want them. Sometimes he was like, no, he's like, no, I don't want to take it because he really wanted to make sure he's conditioned. And mission accomplished. We accomplished that. But the crazy thing was when we started carving him up 3 days out. 3 days out, backed him off cardio. You know, went down to like, you know, he was doing upwards of 60 minutes of cardio, and you know, the week of backed him off to 20 minutes, and 4 days out, 10-minute walk. You know, and started carbing him up 3-4 days out. He's losing weight every morning, waking up lighter, tighter. It's like it's just crazy sometimes, the body, like whether it's the metabolic response, you know, it just like all of a sudden goes into overdrive, and he's just metabolizing his calories better. It's like his digestion got better. His muscles, even like his ab muscles, ended up like popping out more and getting drier. And it's just like, I don't know if there's an exact reason or anyone knows why that happens, but it's just such a cool response. You know what I mean? Because then I start thinking to myself, I'm like, well, like if we did that the week of the show, you know, wouldn't that be something good to do like 2 weeks out if they get that response? But how do you know if you're going to get that response? You know what I mean? And now here we are. He's back home. He's doing the Toronto Pro. I've increased his calories like dramatically. Like not dramatically, but he's eating a lot more calories, and he's losing weight. You know, and he's like, his workouts are great. He's fuller. So it's a pretty cool response when we see that. And he's back down to 25 minutes of cardio, and his body's getting a better response. So
yeah, I mean, I've always noticed that the people that tend to have that response are people that you start, you know, kind of reversing during prep, and they're still like in that mindset where they're super freaking dialed in. They are tracking everything. Yeah. Nothing is weighed out over, you know, everything's down to the gram, you know, that sort of thing. There's still that hyper focus.
Yeah.
You know, I've definitely seen that. Not everyone has that response, but I've seen a lot of people have that kind of response. And again, you know, I think one of the things we really forget about is that muscle tissue is really, like, people think of it as mostly being, you know, protein, and it's actually mostly water. Yes. Like the space of muscle tissue is mostly occupied by water. You know, muscle fibers like balloons, right? So what happens if you take a bunch of the, like say 50% of the air out of the balloon? Well, it looks soft and shriveled up and, you know, not very tight, right? What happens if you pump it up with a bunch of air? Well, now it looks thin, right? Like it looks tight. Well, think about, I mean, I realize that this is, I'm really bastardizing this kind of example, but it holds relatively true. If you're really flat, I mean, this is the problem a lot of competitors make, and coaches too. They'll be really flat, which makes you look softer. And then they think, oh, I need to back off even more. When in reality, they may need to fill out even more.
Yes.
And again, you know, I think you know, people will ask me like, what makes a great coach? And I don't necessarily even think it's a science background necessarily, because at the end of the day, it's not a complicated process. It's okay. We're not losing enough body fat. You eat less and you do more activity. I mean, it's pretty
making the proper judgment calls and assessments. Yeah.
It's having a good eye.
Yeah.
Having a good eye. Is this person on track? Are they going to make it based on what I'm seeing? Yeah. Are they too flat or are they overspilled? You know, those sorts of things. Like having that kind of eye is really important.
Because guys have different muscle too, right? Like I noticed, like one of my clients, Antoine, for example, when he gets super flat, his muscle is like cement, dry, not an ounce of water in it. It's so detailed. Where Quentin, when he gets flat, his upper body gets soft. And it looks like, oh, he's not as conditioned, or really the muscle's just not pushing on the skin. It's like you were saying, a deflated balloon, you know? So,
yeah, it probably depends on people's skin elasticity, some different things. I mean, I have no idea. I'm just kind of like tossing out possibilities.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, understanding those things and being willing to accommodate for them. But I really think that, you know, one, making sure that you're maximizing that. I actually did a post on creatine the other day.
I saw it yesterday. It was an excellent post.
Yeah. Do you pull creatine before a show? And I'm like, of course not. Why would I do that? It's literally putting water right where we want it.
Hydrating the muscle and increasing the cell volume.
So of course, then the bodybuilder's response is, well, let's load creatine during peak week. No. We don't want to do that either.
Just keep it stable.
Yeah. It's so funny. It's like, and you've probably heard me talk about this. It's like so few bodybuilders are willing to just kind of like do a really modest peak. You know,
another extremist.
It's like, I've got to do something crazy.
They want hocus pocus magic at the end. Yeah. Right.
I'm like, dude, I'm like, you can go look at some of these guys. Like, I've never seen a guy win the Mr. Olympia who looked like crap a week out, and then his peak week just fixed everything.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, these guys
It's like,
were
and it's like,
shredded.
why are you risking with whatever hocus pocus? What are you going to get? 3-5% better, risking it to like get 30% worse. Just not worth
Exactly.
it. It's not worth.
Exactly.
You know what was a great? I don't know if you still have this book, but I think I read it on like bodybuilding.com. I don't know if it's a PDF. I read it years ago. You wrote it, and it was a competition, like a guide competition prep guide, and you broke it down, and it was so simple. And I think like if anyone can get their hands on that, it was one of the first books I read, and I started coaching, and everything was just like very simple. It made sense. It was almost like a dummy proof guide to peak for competition. It was like whatever you're thinking, whatever I was like thinking, I was like, oh, we're gonna do this and do that. I read it and I was like, well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You know? So,
No, I mean, like I tell people, so the guide I think was called like the Ultimate Contest Prep Guide or something like that.
yeah,
I know what you're talking about. It's like really long, but actually I did write a full book, 320-page book called The Complete Guide to Contest Prep.
Okay.
You can get that on.
Oh, I got to get that. Oh,
yeah, so
awesome.
it's very detailed. You know, complete chapter on peak week, complete chapter on show day, like just what to expect on show day. Got everything broken down in tables. Like
cut water 3 days out, right?
So I think, you know, one of the things that I really try to point out to people that just kind of makes this very apparent is how many times have you heard someone say, man, I looked so awesome a week out, and then it like I don't know what happened on show day, and then I looked so or then they say, well, I looked so awesome the day after the show, right? And I'm like, man, what's the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over. And I'll tell them, I'm like, okay, you probably did this. And they're like, how did you know that?
Yeah.
I'm like, because it's the same peak week that every guru has done since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
So I'll tell people like, okay, why do you think that you looked better after you went out and had a cheat meal after your show? And you woke up looking crazy and vascular and everything. And they're like, oh, I just didn't carb up enough. I'm like, no, you were eating, 500-600 grams of carbs per day leading up to it. It's because you finally ate sodium and drank water, and that allowed your muscles to fill out, and that's why you looked so good.
Yeah.
And then when I tell them that, they're like, I couldn't have sodium and water before a show.
And that's the one reason why like everyone's always like, oh, why is Dorian like Five Guys burgers? And I tried to have Quentin to have one because I like to see cause and effect, and I like to stick with something consistent that I know, like, hey, if I have a competitor anywhere in the States, there's going to be a Five Guys. And you know what I mean? It's a very easy digestible, high fat, high carb, high sodium food. It's dense. And that's why I like that, because 9 times out of 10 carbing guys up, it's like I feel like having that burger with the amount of sodium and fat and just how dense it is, it really brings their body to life. Or like just doing a clean carb up with an normal amount of sodium. I don't know, even if I got them to eat more sodium for some reason, the burger just does more for them the next day. I don't know if they're lying at Five Guys and they say there's X amount of sodium, but there's actually 3 times as much. But
no, I mean, I think, in terms of vascularity, sodium is your best friend.
Yeah.
I mean, people like, man, I couldn't get a pump on show day. Well, it turns out they haven't had sodium in 3 days, and I'm like, dude, go eat a burrito from Chipotle, or go, have a Five Guys or whatever when you're really lean.
Yeah.
Every time, 2 hours later, you're going to look nuts.
I know.
Like, you're going to look nuts afterwards.
It's crazy.
And I think, people get really caught up on carbohydrate, and carbohydrate is important to fill out your glycogen stores. But if you consider that what causes you to be vascular is the expansion of the blood vessels, one, sodium is important with that because it regulates your blood pressure and allows for it's one of the best osmolytes for drawing water into that area. But then I think people don't think about fats very often. And I've always liked people to have quite a bit of fat, at least a couple hours before show. People go, well, that's not going to fill out your glycogen. No, but when you consider that fat in the form of chylomicrons, which is what fats are packaged as when you eat them, those chylomicrons actually occupy a large amount of space in your blood vessels. And in fact, if you look at, if you draw blood from somebody who had a high fat meal a couple hours ago, it will actually be like viscous and milky. Like,
Wow.
so you got to consider that like that expansion is going to have an impact on your, I mean, again, I'm speculating, but I've noticed very good results when you have, yes, carbohydrate, but with fat and salt.
I
And
agree.
those three things together really seem to bring out like high vascularity
I agree.
and also, filling people
So
out.
two
So
things that I always do, like the night before the show, like the last 2-3 meals, I'd incorporate higher fat meals. Already carbing up for a couple days, and the day of the show, again, carbs, fats, and I would increase the sodium, before prejudging, and I always notice a very good response that way. So
and I
yeah,
think one
it's
of the other
cool.
things people miss as well is I think, there's nothing wrong with doing it quote unquote clean, but I think one of the issues becomes um, a lot of the foods that people are eating as, clean sources of carbohydrate are very, high in fiber. And fiber is awesome for getting lean. It's awesome for satiety. It is not what you want on show day. You don't want a lot of gut fill. What you
Yeah,
actually want on show day is the exact opposite of what you diet on. You want calorie dense, low satiety foods because
yeah,
you want to fill out your glycogen and be vascular, but you don't want your GI to feel like you've eaten anything. You want to feel very,
empty.
very flat there.
Yeah, yeah, it's very good point there. Um, and speaking of fiber, what do you think somebody dieting, someone trying to lose body fat, what is there an ideal amount of fiber they should be eating on a daily basis? And is there a better time to have fiber? Is it better in the evening? If you have it earlier in the day, is it going to slow down digestion? Is there an optimal time to eat it?
So fiber is interesting because fiber is actually more of a digestive rate modulator. So if you are if you have low fiber, you'll actually be much slower digestion. If you add fiber, you will actually reduce your gut transit time because by adding bulk to your to the mass of food you're eating. Did you guys lose me or my
No, we're good.
you,
We're good.
okay? Yeah, for some reason mine skipped there. So by adding a little bit of bulk, it actually helps with peristalsis. And what peristalsis is wave-like contractions of your GI tract, which helps move food down your GI tract. So think about if you've got this wall, because basically your digestive tract is a tube from your mouth to your ass.
Yeah,
And so you have to move the food down that tract. Now gravity helps because we stand up a lot, but also your muscle um, in that GI tract is doing these sorts of wave-like contractions. If anybody have, put your ear on your wife's stomach or something like that, or she put her ear on your stomach, like after you've eaten, you can hear like
yeah,
what
girl, girl,
sounds
girl, girl,
like
girl.
weird stuff. That's usually peristalsis.
Yeah,
Um, so it's moving it down. Well, if you have like a really small mass of food, that it has to contract harder and it's more difficult for it to move it down. Whereas if you have a bigger mass of food, it can help move it down. Now, if you have too much fiber or a lot of fiber, then it can start to slow it as well. So it tends to be more of a regulator than it does in terms. People think, well, it just slows down digestion.
right.
Not always, not necessarily. So as far as how much fiber is very unique because the health benefits of fiber we really haven't like found a cap. There's been a few meta-analyses where they've done meta-regressions, which is basically looking at a certain variable, I think mostly like cancer and heart disease, and looking at, okay, what is the incidence of these diseases as we increase or decrease fiber? And it's pretty much like a linear decrease. The more fiber you eat, the less disease prevalence there is.
Wow.
Um, and I mean, there's some reasons for that. Colon cancer is one of the most common cancers out there. It's also one, I think it's the fourth deadliest cancer there is. And there is strong evidence that dietary fiber intake is very closely associated or inversely associated with colon cancer.
Wow. What are your top 5 sources of fiber that you like to use? or recommend someone use?
Yeah, I think a good mix of stuff. I mean, you want to get a good mix of soluble and insoluble fibers. So, like fruits actually have some good fiber in because there's
Yeah.
pectin and whatnot.
Yep.
You've got things like barley and oats and cereals that have some whole grain that it has some good soluble
Benefits.
fiber in there, which is really good for like short chain fatty acid fermentation and also lowering cholesterol levels.
Yep.
And then your insoluble fiber, your fibrous vegetables, those sorts of things. I think all those are great sources.
You want a good combination of the three.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
And especially for bodybuilders, especially for guys who are running performance enhancing drugs, I think it's really important. I'm somebody who has a little bit high LDL cholesterol just from my family.
Yeah.
And I've always been drug free, and still my LDL is a little bit high. But I'm sure you've seen this with guys on PEDs. I mean, their LDL cholesterol can get really high.
Yes.
And that is, you'll have all these LDL denialists these days who are like, oh, it doesn't matter. You can get LDL, eat as much saturated fat as you want. I was actually in that boat about 10 to 15 years ago. And once they came out with a bunch of Mendelian randomization studies, I changed my opinion on that. So Mendelian randomization is basically the longest kind of randomized control trial you can run. So they can randomize people based on their genes into like high secretors of LDL and low secretors of LDL. And man, it is crazy just how tight the association between heart disease and LDL cholesterol is. It's basically a linear association based on how much people secrete.
Wow.
So, and then there's, that being said, it appears ApoB is a particular lipoprotein, that particular lipoprotein is the one that is really causative for heart disease. But it just so happens that if you have high LDL, you probably have high ApoB as well.
Right.
So for those sorts of people, really, really making sure you're getting enough soluble fiber in. But it's really funny because I see some bodybuilders who just like, they take so much stuff out of their diet that their diet's really terrible.
It's like rice and chicken.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And especially with guys who are like having to eat a lot of calories, they tend to not want to eat a lot of vegetables because it's so filling and it makes them bloated, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that, if you're going to be that way, it's still like a fiber supplement. Like, it's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's better than nothing.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I didn't answer your first question, which is how much. I think the old rule of like 15 grams per 1,000 calories, I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's safe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always tell clients, like, if they're eating 3,000 calories, around 50 grams of fiber, on a daily basis. So it's right in that range.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, hold on. So if we got 3,000 calories, yeah, about 40 grams of fiber per 3,000.
Oh, okay. I thought you said 2,000.
No, 3,000 calories. Yeah, 3,000. I would be in that 40 to 50 range.
Yeah, that's good.
I tend to stick to
the average.
Did we?
Just to put it in perspective, the average. I'm sorry, mine's lagging. I talked over you. I'm sorry, Norton.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
The average American eats 6 grams of fiber per day.
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
Put that in perspective.
It's crazy. 6 grams.
Yeah.
Wow, it's impressive.
Yeah.
And they wonder why they can't use the washroom.
The top 2 vegetables in the Western diet are potatoes from French fries and tomato from ketchup.
Oh my gosh, so bad.
It is bad.
So bad. I wanted you to explain to people, because I think it's one question that I get a lot, and I think people need to really understand the difference with cardio. Doing steady state versus doing HIIT, high intensity cardio, and the benefits. I think people think that, like, oh, if I do HIIT cardio and it's only 20 minutes long, everyone thinks that steady state is more effective because it's longer durations. I don't think they understand the impact it has on your metabolic rate. And when you are performing HIIT, you're burning more calories all day at rest versus just more calories during that cardio session. Because I know you're
So,
big on the HIT cardio.
so this is something that I've actually come back to the middle on, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I've been at the extremes of both of these. When I first got into bodybuilding, and I'm going to date myself, I'll be 40 here in a month.
Yeah.
When I did my first show back in 2001, some of the people watching this probably weren't even born yet. When I did my first show back in 2001, the rhetoric was fasted, steady state cardio. Do not, under any circumstance, do anything faster than a walk because you're going to burn off all your muscle tissue, right?
It's gonna be gone. 3 days.
And then I kind of, switched over, which is fine with me because I was so tired that the idea of doing HIIT cardio did not appeal to me,
Yeah.
So then over like the next, I would say 5 to 10 years, I really changed my opinion on it and was really pushing for high intensity. One, just the obvious benefit is it takes you less time, right? Like you can get in 15 minutes, you can get done what it would take you an hour to do with, walking or other stuff. So there's that. The other thing is too, it's very interesting that bodybuilders were so anti high intensity cardio, considering that lifting is a form of high intensity cardio. Like if you do a set of heavy weights and you're training close to failure, your heart rate will be very high by the end. I mean, even something like, not even like God, if you're doing a squat, just do 5 reps. You know what I mean? I've done it. I think I've done a squat triple before where my heart rate was 170 afterwards,
Wow.
So, big compound exercises, and especially if you start going higher reps, I mean, they can jack your heart rate way up. So I've always was like, okay, what cardio is the most similar to what we do in the gym? It's high intensity, like sprints and whatnot. So that's what I advocated for a long period of time. And part of the reasoning also was, well, you get the afterburn effect, right? Like you're going to burn more calories throughout the day. So now we have a lot more studies on this, and it turns out the afterburn effect really isn't as significant as we thought. It's like an extra 30 to 50 calories a day. It's pretty inconsequential.
Really? Wow,
yeah,
that's interesting.
Pretty small.
Interesting.
And there doesn't appear to be a whole lot of difference in muscle retention either. Now, what I will say is I think there's still benefits to high-intensity cardio, but I think be careful with the modality. I would try to stay away from running, only because running, there's
too much impact.
One, I've seen people, there's impact, so you're doing like a micro-eccentric every single time, right? Where that causes muscle damage and could increase soreness and be a detriment to your recovery. And I've just seen so many people pull hammies,
the risk of injury is heightened for sure.
Yes, and especially like people who are, we're bodybuilders, we're not educated on proper technique for sprinting, even though this is something I advocated for a while back.
Yeah.
So I would keep it to, the bike is a great way to get cardio in because, bike's low impact. If you think about the modality of the bike, it's very similar to, what you're doing with hip flexion in a leg press, so it'll get you a great workout. It's probably not going to make you sore because it's only the concentric portion of the not the lift, but, the exercise.
Yeah.
So I like that. I used to like carb pushes too, just to get some resistance in there and make it a little bit more fun,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's many ways to skin a cat. But what I would say for the most part is, whatever you prefer. If you've got a bunch of time to kill during a day and you just want to do low intensity, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
If you're somebody who's strapped for time and you only got 30 minutes to get it done or 20 minutes to get it done, well, then maybe do some higher intensity stuff. But man, keep in mind, I will tell you, like when I was in prep, I used to have to psych myself up for my high intensity sessions, just like I would a lifting session.
Oh no, they're no joke. Because when you're prepping, like you're already putting forth all that energy with your weight training. So to do it with the cardio too, it's like, it's intense, right? When you're doing it on the bike, those high intensity sessions, the quads are burning, the lactic acid, it's no joke. And like when you do true high intensity HIIT, it's like, I don't think most people do true high intensity when they do it. They go hard, but they're not doing true,
Oh yeah. Well, My favorite statement is people are like, oh yeah, I do high intensity. I do a minute of high intensity and I do 30 seconds of recovery. And I'm like,
You can't go hard for a minute and recover
what
for
are you
30
talking about?
seconds. You need
Like,
3 minutes to recover
yeah,
if you go
I'm
hard for
talking
30 seconds.
like all out,
Yeah.
everything you got. You're gonna die if you
Yeah.
don't, get the fastest time you possibly can.
Yeah.
You got 10, 20 seconds
Oh man.
max,
Crazy.
maybe 30.
Crazy.
But I mean, I still do some HIIT just for like cardiovascular health benefits, even in the off season.
Yeah.
And I'll go in, I'll get on the bike and I really love the salt bikes. Those are
Yep.
fun,
Yep.
or terrible depending on how you look at it. I'm a masochist, so I like it. But I'll do 10-second all out sprint, and my heart rate will be up for another 2 minutes. Like
Wow.
it takes a while to come back down. So if you're
Yeah.
really doing a true all out sprint,
Yeah.
all that to say, it just boils down to how you want to spend your time, right? Like if you got a podcast you want to listen to or a book on tape or whatever, you don't mind jumping on the treadmill or going outside and walking for 2 hours. I know you guys are in Canada, so you don't really have that option to walk outside all the time.
Yeah.
We're coming to the time of year where everybody in Florida goes, "Yeah, y'all made fun of us, huh?"
Yeah. Yeah, I guess
So-
ultimately at the end of the day, it's like, hey, whatever people can make a part of their daily lifestyle and they enjoy doing, they're going to have more success with. If you hate doing HIIT cardio and you're forced,
Sure.
you're not going to end up being able to do it on a weekly, daily basis or whatever it is, right?
For
So,
sure. I think
yeah.
personal preference with regards to nutrition, training, cardio,
Yes.
it gets so overlooked. And I get people who are like, man, I tried this thing and it didn't work for me. I did this and it worked for me. And they think it's because of some physiological mechanism.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's because you actually found something you enjoyed and you
Yeah, you
stuck to
enjoyed
it
it. You liked
consistently.
it. Yeah.
And that's why it worked.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, most people, I will tell you, I think, programming makes a difference. I think, the proper nutrition makes a difference. But most people, even bodybuilders, if you just got consistent, if you just work hard consistently, you can do a lot of things, quote unquote, wrong, and you're still going to get amazing results.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even some of the people I worked with who were top level competitors, it was like, yeah, they'd be consistent for 2 weeks and they'd blow out on a weekend. And now we're, playing from behind again. It's like, if you could just not like, if you're like, okay, eat a little bit of food and like account for it, whatever.
Yeah.
But no, it's like either we're 100% on our diet or we're, binging 3 days in a row.
I was just talking to a member and a friend here at the gym, and he's been struggling to get in shape for years. And he's one of those guys that like yo-yo dieter. So like he'll go hard on a diet for like 9 days and lose like 12 pounds. And then he'll go out with the guys and drink. And I'm like, dude, you have to make this a lifestyle. You have to, on a daily basis, create some good habits. You like doing cardio in the morning? Start doing cardio. Start weight training. Eat 3 meals. You know what? If you need to go out for lunch every day with a friend or whatever, do that. But do these other things. And it's a slow progress over the year. Don't do this and then this. Just create habits that you can do on a daily basis and keep them a part of your life, because you're going to be able to do it long term. If you're doing things, if you're like, oh, I'm going to start dieting and he eats egg whites every meal, dude, you're going to last a week and then you're going to, like, it's a waste of time.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
and, I've seen so many people like that. And I think part of it is people are very like, I think black and white is easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm dieting or I'm not dieting. I'm doing this or I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, you said it. Everybody says, well, you got to make it a lifestyle. And it's like, they're saying that as they're doing a diet that has zero probability of actually being able to be a lifestyle.
No.
Right?
Like hate every minute of it. How are you going to continue to do that? It's just not attainable.
Bodybuilding prep is a different animal. You're going to do some shit that's not sustainable.
Yeah, it's extreme.
Because the condition is not sustainable, like for most people, right?
Yes.
There's maybe a few freaks out there that can maintain really, really lean body fat, but most of us know.
Yeah, but if you look at most people, though, that are in shape year-round, you're going to see that they're doing on a daily basis. They have some habits or things they do, whether they do yoga 5 times a week, they train daily, they do cardio daily, they enjoy their diets. Like, they're doing things on a daily basis. They enjoy it, They're not, like, putting themselves through torture and doing something they don't like, because it's not going to last.
Norton, you'll appreciate this. A few years back, it's probably like 5-6 years ago, there was a prep coach, and I can't remember his name. And he actually wanted to debate me on IFYM, and basically saying, well, it can't be effective for contest prep. Never mind all these people I turned pro on IFYM, but regardless, it's like your anecdote matters, but not mine. But hey, whatever. So the opening part of my debate before he pulled out of it was going to be, he was posting pictures of his cheat meals each week on Facebook. So I added up the calories from his cheat meals, from like junk food, and then I added up the calories that I have from bad foods during the week, just having them in moderation. And he was like 50% higher than me.
Oh my!
And I'm like, so let me get this straight. On the weekend where you binge eat, that's fine to have junk food. But having less of it sprinkled throughout the week and accounting for the calories, that's not okay and not going to work. And it's just like typical like fitness mindset
so
of like
backwards, man. No, I've seen it. Like honestly, man, like Rachel, like she every night, man, like she's in amazing shape year round. She enjoys a couple things here and there on a daily basis, and she maintains a low body fat. And everyone's always like, "Oh, what does Rachel do? How does she stay in great shape all the time?" And she just has a really good lifestyle, like a really good balance. You know what I mean? She doesn't deprive herself of things. If she wants something, she has a piece. She's not binging, so it's been a game changer for her.
Well, and the other thing too, I think she's probably also not trying to get shredded all the time, right?
Nope.
Because I'll tell people this, I'm like, sometimes great is the enemy of good.
Right.
And what I mean by that is, there's actually research literature to support this as well. If you're lean, like I can maintain a pretty darn lean physique. We're talking like on calipers, like 7%, pretty easy.
Right.
Like I've got to be active, but if I get like a 2-hour hard training session in like 5 times a week, which I enjoy doing anyway, it's not a problem for me. I realize some people are more strapped for time, but I can maintain 7%, and if I want to do like a night out with the boys where we're gonna have a lot of beers, okay, I'm gonna have to like plan a little more because those are calories from liquid. They're not satiating, whatever. I'm gonna have to eat a little bit less throughout the rest of the day.
Yeah,
it's fine. Not a big
make
deal.
the proper adjustments.
Right, and that's good habits, right? But and I like this in 2019, I was up a weight class in powerlifting. I was at 105 kilos, and I dropped back down to 93 kilos. So about 30 pounds of weight loss, or 25 pounds of weight loss. And I went from 15% on calipers down to 7. It was easy.
Yeah.
Like it honestly was easy. In fact, my wife was disgusted by how easy it was for me.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you'll be able to relate to this. To go from 7 on calipers to 4 is soul sucking.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will really want to get that last bit of like shredded. And I'm like, I'm telling you, if you're not going to compete, ain't worth it.
No, and that's one thing. I was just talking to someone yesterday. I was like, my body personally, I feel like I get to like that 7%. I feel good. My energy's good. Everything's good. Sleeping's good. Once my body pushes below that, body fat wise, I do not feel good. I feel anxious. My sleep, like all these other things I noticed, right? So the body doesn't want to be at these extreme low levels of body fat. And I'm sure everyone has a different threshold. I'm sure some people's bodies don't mind being 6% or 5%.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty interesting.
That's kind of the body fat set point, theory of dieting. And they do. So there was a paper by a guy named DeLu, and he kind of synthesized a lot of this research out there. And what it showed was that people who are already lean who attempt to diet are more likely to become fatter.
Wow.
So it's like if you're in a good place and you try to disturb that steady state where your body is good, your body may just kind of give you a fuck you. I mean, we see it like people. Because if you're trying, like you can get to a lean body fat, but then to get that much lower, like your hunger goes up disproportionately. Your energy levels drop disproportionately. And so it's like you're much more prone to like episodes of being super food focused,
Yeah.
binge eating, like, it's so tough because, I just remember being in contest prep and I'm like, man, I'm a different human. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's hard because you get, and again, if people haven't done it, you get so food focused.
I know.
It's
It's your body
literally,
releases that like hormone, whatever it is. It's like, and it can take a long time for it to go away after the competition.
oh yeah.
So,
No, it's literally, I mean, your hedonic pleasure sensor from food, they've done this in studies. It's literally better than sex.
wow.
Food is better than sex at that
Yeah.
point. So it's pretty wild. So I'll tell people like, and again, that's probably one of the reasons Rachel has been able to maintain that is she's probably not trying to push that threshold. She's
Yeah.
staying in that nice, comfortable
Yeah.
lean zone where she feels good and has energy and can maintain that.
And I think it's important too for people that are dieting for, competition and stuff like that. To also like put into the equation like training performance. Like if you're dieting at say at 2,000 calories and you're trying to push it, is it really worth dipping to 1,800 calories if your training performance suffers and now you're not working out as hard? And there's these other variables to consider, right? So it's one thing I always like to measure and keep an eye on with people is like, are you training hard, or are you at the point where you're eating such little food that you go into the gym, you're just going through the motions?
Yeah, my favorite one when it comes to training is people like literally they get in a calorie deficit one day and they're like, well, I know my strength's going to go down, so I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I'm going to
Yeah.
switch from squats to this, and and I'm like,
Yeah.
hold up, hold
Yeah.
up. What are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
you've been dieting for a day or a week. I'm
Yeah.
like, shut up.
Yeah.
You
Oh
know,
man.
I gained strength on most of my preps right up until probably about 6 to 8 weeks out.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, yes, there is a point at which your strength will start to
Yeah,
diminish.
the last couple weeks, you know what I mean? 3, 4 weeks. But aside from that, your body should be the most efficient it's ever been. Your sleep's there, your nutrition's there, your recovery's there. Everything should be on point, right? You're dialed in.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
I think, um, yeah. So I tell people, I'm like, I want to, like, yes, you might lose strength, but if you have already resigned yourself to the fact that your performance is going to drop and you're going to lose strength, then you definitely will, and you'll lose it faster because
Yeah.
placebo is a real thing. So,
Yeah.
like, fight it with every ounce of your being. And again, like, the easiest cut I ever did. I mean, when I dropped, so this has been back in 2013. It had always been hard for me to get like under 210. Like that once I got there, I started getting hungry and whatnot. And I was dropping, they had restructured the weight of the classes for the IPF. And so I was going to drop from a 220 class or a 100 kilo class to the 93 kilo or 205 pound class. And I actually kind of had to make a decision. Am I going to go up to 231 or am I going to go down to 205? And I made the decision to go down. And I
Yeah.
did it over a long period of time. And my squat went from 600 to 650 pounds. My deadlift went from 675 to 705. And my bench
Wow.
pretty much stayed the same because bench is a little bit more sensitive to body weight. But, it was one of those things where it was like, if I had resigned myself to the idea that I was going to lose strength, well, I would have lost strength. But I focused, what made the diet so easy was my focus wasn't, I want to lose all this weight. My focus was, I want to train my ass off
Performance.
and have good performance.
Yep.
And by doing that and having good performance, I was actually eating quite a bit of calories and still dropping weight and getting leaner. And I actually ended up blowing past 205 and actually got down to like, I remember weighing in at 199 one day.
Yeah.
And I was starting to get striations in my glutes. And I'm like,
Wow.
I wonder if anybody's ever squatted
Well,
650.
yeah, well, when you look at a lot of like people in the Olympics, like look at sprinters, right? They don't eat. They're not eating thinking, "Oh, I need to get low body fat." They're eating for performance and they're shredded. They're peeled. You know what I mean? They're eating for performance to perform. So it's
There is a nexus. There is a nexus there for some people. Some people, they add in more food, they don't really feel that much better, or you
Yeah.
take out more food, they don't feel that much worse. Like that's where again individualized coaching comes in.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of it's psychological, but that's still important.
yeah,
And
yeah.
finding that nexus of where can I push this person harder in the gym? Oh, pardon me. Oh, oh, sorry
Yeah.
about that.
No,
Can I
100%.
push this person harder in the gym, or do I, or are they kind of maxed out and need to pull back food a little more? Both those outcomes are valid. It just depends on the person.
Yeah. Before we let you go here today, Layne, I really appreciate you taking the time today. I wanted to ask you, how's everything going with Outwork, your nutrition supplement brand? It's cool to see you guys do that. You were actually one of the first persons when we did HD Muscle. You were one of the first people that I was like, if Layne doesn't have anything in place, I wanted to get him involved with us. And when I reached out, you were in the works having your own stuff coming out, which you have 3 products. They're all great formulas. You're sticking with all ingredients that have tons of clinical studies, and I'm really impressed with everything you guys got going on. So how's that been going for you guys? I know you launched during a time like when we did, when it's one of the most challenging times in history for supplement brands, supply and demand. So I just wanted to see how things were going with your brand there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, things have gone better than we thought they would. I had, for those who aren't familiar, I actually had a brand with bodybuilding.com back about 5 years ago. And it was a partnership between myself and them. And I mean, no shade towards them whatsoever. They were great. They were just going through a big transition in their company, and it didn't work out. And I kind of told myself, you know what? I think I'm out of the supplement game. It's just, and I kind of told that to the different suitors who came, and I just didn't think I could sell supplements because I kind of had the feeling, you know what? I tried to do it. No proprietary blends, no bullshit. Not overhyping stuff, that kind of thing. And it just didn't work out. You know what I mean? And so I got reached out to by my partner, my silent partner, who's been fabulous, really great business partner. And he was like, you should do this. This could be very good. You just need the right partner. And I'm like, all right, so says everybody, right? But really, it's gone well.
Awesome.
He's done a great job of organizing things, navigating. We have had some times where we've been sold out of products for a couple of weeks, because the supply chain issues.
Yeah.
There's been all Texas actually made it challenging too, because a lot of in Texas, and so when that happened, we actually had the products, like the powder, ready to go, and there was we had no bottles for them.
No bottles.
But he actually was able to source them.
Yeah, it was a disaster for us too with the bottles. Oh, there's bottles, but there's no lids. It's like, it's always something, right?
So he actually was able to source lids from a different company that would fit the bottles we had. So it worked out.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
But yeah, I mean, we sold, like, initially we were selling out because we just didn't anticipate the demand that there was.
Yeah.
And we're doing good. I mean, we're not ready to be the main sponsor at the Olympia or anything like that. But we're doing really well.
That's good. And, I'm happy to see that.
We're growing. We're taking it slow. We just launched our ambassador program. That's been going really well.
Good.
And we're going to start. We haven't even done any digital marketing or paid marketing yet.
Yep.
And so we're looking forward to seeing how that goes when we do it. But we really wanted to make sure we took it slow, had our ducks in a row, had excellent customer service and good products that people were excited about. And I mean, again, the feedback on the products has been, I mean, I knew it would be good, but honestly, I think we've had like one negative review that got emailed to us, and it was more the person didn't like the tingles from the beta alanine, which is just,
then it's like you don't like beta alanine.
That's right. That's right. So, but overall, it's gone extremely well, and
it's great. It's great. It's great to see, like, I feel like there's a little bit of movement in the industry right now, in the supplement industry, where there are some brands that are really putting out good quality formulas, full dose, clinical doses. So it's great to see. I think the industry needs more of that, and I think people like yourself and us are sort of leading in that direction. It's causing everyone else in the industry to sort of level up, right? Because we're providing the education. Because that's the thing. At the end of the day, I feel like the consumers are getting more educated, and they are reading labels. They want to know what they're putting in their bodies and why. So it's great to see.
Yeah, I think it's so important. The people, I'll get this question a lot. They're like, it must be worse than it's ever been in the fitness industry. And I said, yeah, there's more BS out there, but there's also more good stuff.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, you didn't really have much good stuff because it was all BS. You know what I
Remember the
mean?
magazines? Man, you buy a magazine and it was like bullshit before and afters, and it was all BS. It was like, there's very little truth.
Yeah.
So
Now I think we're living in the age of the greatest amount of transparency that there is, right?
I agree.
I'll tell everybody like, hey, you could make this thing yourself. We list exactly what's in our stuff, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Good luck sourcing everything and then getting it to taste good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, somebody asked me like, why should we buy your whey protein? What's different about it? I was like, it's a really high quality, affordable, good tasting whey protein, but we're not reinventing the wheel. You know what I mean? I'm not going to make claims that this is like 10 times more anabolic than other. I'm not going to come out with goat semen protein or something like that and claim it's more anabolic. It's just not. It's protein. It's great, but it's protein. So I think that it's tough because at first that doesn't sell well, but I think over time, the trust you build with the consumer that you're not gonna tell them you won't make gains without our product, that sort of thing.
I think at the end of the day,
you're gonna get worn out by that marketing.
My camera's messing up here, but at the end of the day, it's like you just want people to like have eventually they're gonna have the trust. They know that anything that Outwork comes out with, you know what I mean. They know and they stand behind it, that it's quality, and they have the confidence knowing that what they're buying is a good product, right? So building the brand, it's a lot of fun. I know you guys are going to love it, enjoy it, and you come out with new products, and you just continue to grow the business. It's fun.
Yeah, we're hoping to have a couple new products launched in first quarter next year. So it is exciting. And,
awesome.
And you mentioned also Carb and Diet Coach. That's another thing that
Looks
we couldn't have dude. So that's our app, our nutrition coaching app. People mistake it for a tracker, but it's really not.
No, when I watched you do a podcast. I don't know if it was with Fuad, and you were talking about it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is genius. I can't imagine how long that took you to develop that. But man, unbelievable. It really is incredible.
So it's basically a nutrition coach in your pocket.
It's amazing.
Tells you what to do with your macros. Makes it easy to track. We do have a tracker in there, but it's a great product, and like we're at 40,000 members almost right now, and we've done no paid marketing whatsoever. So I think once we start, we've actually honestly, we were so busy just trying to accommodate all the requests from our users because they were loving it so much that we've just now gotten onto hiring a marketing team and doing some of the things we need for our business. And so I'm excited to see where it goes in the future because it really is. It's a great product and something I'm extremely proud of.
Yeah. Now, you guys got a lot of good things going, and I really appreciate all the content and all the education you've put out there over the years. I think we need more people like you in the industry. And I appreciate you taking the time to come on today. I hope people got a lot of value and knowledge out of this podcast. And we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on. And please tell Rachel I said hi. And,
I will.
For those who don't know, I worked with Rachel for probably 3-4 years.
Yeah, years.
Yeah, both you guys are great clients.
Thank you.
Awesome people. So I wish you guys the absolute best. And I've been watching what you've been doing with your company too, and looks like it's going extremely well, and I could not be more happy for you guys.
Yeah, things have been going great. We'll have to see if you ever come to Canada in the near future, Toronto area, we'll have to get you to come to the gym here. It's pretty amazing. I think you'd really appreciate the gym we've created here. It's massive. We're actually doing an addition. It's going to be like 40,000 square feet, so it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Wow. That gets me stressed out just thinking about going to the gym.
It's a lot of fun. We have good team.
I would love to. You guys are in Toronto, right?
Yep, Toronto.
Yeah. I would love to.
That'd be awesome.
Once we can travel again and COVID are COVID restrictions lifted in Canada yet?
Yeah, they allow people to come in, but you have to be vaccinated. So you're allowed to, but they still have that stipulation. But we'll see. We'll see what happens in the next 6 months, right?
Yeah. Cool. Well, we would love to do it. Maybe summer.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. The weather's good. Great. Thanks, Layne. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
See ya.